is an offense under the laws of Kenya. Please let her go to the courts.
I would urge my sister to restrict herself to the contents of this report. It is a matter of record in this house that I have been punished severely for every crimes that I have ever committed on this floor, so that nobody can bring that into this particular discussion. I have never been let scot-free, not because of my sex or anything. I have been punished for all transgressions that have ever happened on this floor.
I have listed my challenges repeatedly on paper. We are actually in court, and this is a matter that is live in court. That is why you don't see me commenting on it. But Parliament has chosen to continue discussing and debating it, and so therefore I have to add my voice.
Because I don't believe in the right state of mind, she can just put wild allegations that do not hold water. Maybe the way she has approached the whole matter is what is a problem.
That if we punish our child, it is in keeping with the age-old phrase that spare the rod, spoil the child.
I have repeatedly asked for evidence. In fact, my latest one being a letter that I wrote saying that the Senate has to release a travel report, because it is obvious when the travel report comes out, it is not my word against the clerk.
A proposal to suspend her for the remainder of the second session of the 13th Parliament. That is excessive. In all fairness, it's excessive. It's unjust. It's unreasonable.
This is really embarrassing to us as a house, and we are trying to put our heads together to see what can we do to cover ourselves. Please, I request you, my good neighbor and my friend, you can make better decisions than the one you are making this afternoon. Don't reduce this into a party issue. Please, my brother, I beg of you, because you are a commissioner and a man that I respect so much.
And we should not expose it by washing some kind of linen. That might not be very good to the public.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ with the report and state that not only is it very punitive to our colleague, Senator Gloria, it is also seems to be discriminatory, because first of all, we are tabling this report and debating it in her absence.
But mine is just to ask, as the leaders, why did we allow it to come this far?
All right, just discussing the fate of Senator Gloria Orwoba there, and it was such a heated debate at the Senate as well. We shall be discussing a lot of issues around gender and also a National Assembly and the Senate. This is also a kind of issue that is brought before the National Dialogue Committee. Recently we had for the Siasa agenda that we need more seats in the House, especially when it comes to affirmative action. Why would it really take National Dialogue Committee to instill or also to broach something that is clearly enshrined in the Constitution? Is there a problem with implementation? Why should we be following the Constitution to the T? Also, we had the previous CJ talking very volubly regarding the issue with the resolution letter that he had actually tabled at, of course, the desk of the then President Uhuru Kenyatta. That as it stands, they say the cabinet secretaries, all the parliament should be dissolved because of gender issues as well. But let's just broach this issue from a wider perspective, and I'll begin with you, Senator, because I've seen you also, you were on that particular clip. First of all, generally, what is happening with Senator Orwoba? I know this is a matter in court that she says she cannot go to the merits and demerits of it, first of all, but looking at the numbers, especially when it comes to gender equality, senators, or just basically the legislators on that particular mark, you're really wide off the mark.
Yeah, I think first, as a house, if there is a member who misconducts himself or herself, the house has a right to punish that member. That one is not in doubt. It has happened before, and it's no exception for what happened to Senator Gloria Orwoba. But, you have to balance, the kind of punishment that is being meted out to a member vis-a-vis the alleged offense. Because Dibal, as a speaker, you're going to be careful so that you don't reduce the house into a funeral. You know, you need to have debates. That's why in most Commonwealth jurisdictions, members enjoy privilege on the floor of the House. So my only objection to what was happening to Senator Gloria was the severity of the punishment, that she's being suspended from the sittings of the House till February of next year. In last session, Dibal, we had Senator Mary Senator, nominated senator from Kajiado, and Senator Kwamboka, who engaged in a physical fight when we were doing elections for the chair of Health Committee. And that matter was taken, before the Powers and Privileges Committee, and they recommended some punishment against Senator Kwamboka. But I remember Speaker Lusaka moderated and said, look, since this is the first time we are having a case against Kwamboka, let us shame her. She comes to the floor. We ask her to walk, face the House and read an apology in front of cameras to the entire House. And then we pardon her, because that was the first time she was facing disciplinary proceedings from the Powers and Privileges Committee. So my argument was, let's punish Senator Gloria, that's okay, but not expelling her for the remainder of the session till February of next year, because you know the consequences are dire. You miss your salary, you don't access your office, you will not have any contact with your staff during that duration. So literally you are out of the Senate for the next 6 months. I would have wished Dibal that this being a young senator nominated by UDA, who I think they want to nurture, understanding her background, she just lost her father 2 years ago from cancer. She's the one trying to bring up a family. That is really very insensitive from UDA, doing that to a young senator. That is almost saying we brought you to the Senate so that we destroy you. I would have wished that she be expelled even from 10 sittings. That's harsh enough. Then you give her a chance to come back. If she repeats, then you can pass a more severe punishment, like expelling her from the remainder of the session. So my only objection is on the severity of the punishment. I have no objection to her being punished if, as they allege, she is not able to substantiate the sexual harassment claims that she has made. That's okay. But then, even in criminal courts, when you are a first offender, there is always leniency. But on this case, I think there was no leniency. And then, of course, finally, Dibal, there is always what you call precedent setting. If you start meting out such harsh punishment to senators, I've seen Senator Sifuna speaking there. He has misconducted himself in the past, but the worst that has happened is for him to be expelled for the remainder of the sitting of the day, not for the entire session. So today it would be Gloria. Tomorrow it will be Sifuna. The other day it will be Catherine. So as you speak these things, know that next time it could be on you. Yeah.
But looking at the standing orders, wasn't that the right or the right wisest of fashion to handle that particular case? Looking at the standing orders, what part of the standing orders was it affected to her being thrown out from the House?
That is
for the next. Is it 6 months?
In terms of jurisdiction, that's within the purview of the Powers and Privileges Committee. It has got the power to do so. And they can expel you for the remainder of the session. They can ask you to apologize.
Okay, so what is the issue at hand? Because I think even the public, there are matters of sexual allegations with the speaker
the
being
issue
incriminated in this.
The allegation against her is that she made false accusations against the clerk of the Senate, Jeremiah Nyagenye, that she wanted to be served. Some issues are addressed, including her office. I think she has rented her office outside Parliament, and she was seeking to get a refund for that office. That was not done to her. That's what she claims. And then she was also raising issues that some nominated senators get preferential treatment for when there is a chance for them to travel out of the country. And she says, unless you give in to some sexual advances, you will not be accommodated in those trips. Now, when the team sat and did investigation, they arrived at a conclusion that those allegations were false. That's the genesis of the punishment she's facing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's why you have seen her claiming that she's yet to be given the information she was seeking. But I think a finding has been made by the Powers and Privileges Committee. And she says she's before court. I can't comment much, but Nyikal will tell you, Honorable Nyikal, that I expressed the same views when Opiyo Wandayi was again expelled from the House. And I said, you know, if you start treating members of parliament in such a harsh manner, then you kind of intimidate members of parliament, and you will never have a lively debate in the House. You know, if historically you follow debates, Dibal, even when we had single party, you know, when the government was so intolerant, extremely intolerant, still the speaker used to say, let us listen to Honorable Martin Shuku. Let us listen to George Anyona. They would get their chance and say what they wanted to say. But I can tell you, nowadays, at times you find our speakers are very, very intolerant. You know, if you go to the UK, the immediate former speaker of the House of Commons was so harsh to, you know, members of House of Commons that when he left, when his tenure as a speaker came to an end, they refused to promote him to the House of Lords. The first one ever not to be promoted to the House of Lords. They stripped him of privileges that are enjoyed by former speakers. If he goes to the House of Commons, he doesn't get the privilege of going to sit in the gallery. He can only go to the public gallery. For him to visit the House of Commons, he has to write and seek permission, because they felt that he really mistreated members of House of Commons when he served as a speaker. So I also urge our speakers, you know, to moderate the debate, the conduct, the punishment in such a manner that it doesn't kill the spirit of the debate that should happen on the floor of the House. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you've been accused that was it on the party lines? I had a senator accusing you that you actually, was it a matter of party lines? I didn't get it very clearly what he was actually raising.
He thought that I was making, you know, my contribution was taking a party line. I think that's what he was saying. But if you listened, I'm trying to remember the name of there's a lady senator who spoke. What's her name? The nominated senator. And that's a Huda senator. I think she...
You seem to be the one who is actually for Orwoba against the party itself. So it's like you're holding fort for her against their party.
Probably he was
no.
to protect his voting bloc. That is why he spoke the way.
Exactly.
He spoke, you know.
You know, if you follow me, anything that borders on oppression is never my turf. Anything that points to a line of somebody trying to oppress another, I never take that line. So this was not an issue of a party line. As I've said, my objection was on the severity of the punishment. It was just like what happened to Opiyo Wandayi. I mean, it was so severe. I think he was expelled for a record 12 months. And that matter went to court, and Justice Odunga quashed it. But by the time he was quashing it, Honorable Wandayi had been out of parliament for a record 4 months. But the verdict that came from court was that that punishment was too severe. That was the only objection I had on that punishment. As I've said, Dibal, If this was an expulsion for 10 sittings, for example, I would not have had an objection. My whip, Honorable Baya.
Let's allow me to butt into what you see. Yes, I agree with. Sometimes speakers need to look at certain things. The Speaker of the National Assembly has been a very lenient person. Actually, Speaker Wetangula has done a good job in Parliament. Even when he is under extreme provocation, he has actually restrained himself, including certain things that are said at the floor of the House. But he has restrained himself, and I do not think he has had a case before him at the Privileges Committee. But what is happening in the Senate, and I actually sometimes sit back and ask myself, did we send sometimes the wrong people to the Senate? Because the Senate should be, they claim that they are the upper house, but they are not exercising that it actually did, because a lot of the issues that I've been seeing in Senate, including fist fights between senators, and it's not the first time Gloria Orwoba has been thrown out of the House or because of misconduct. I think I remember when she came to the floor of the House donning a trouser that has menstrual something, you know, and she was thrown out of the House. I think she's been thrown out of the House twice or 3 times over certain. But you see, if you read Fyodor Dostoevsky's book, Crime and Punishment, you know there are people who think they have a right to transgress because it is good in politics. You know, it takes you to another level. It gives you a name. You are remembered for something. You know, but sometimes we need to sit back and think about that. I don't know whether you've read Dostoevsky's book, Crime and Punishment. It's a thick book, but it teaches many lessons in there. And it tells you something that certain people who get into certain positions through a privilege. I don't know whether you understand what I say, through a privilege. Orwoba comes into Senate through a privilege by the party. She hasn't fought for that position the way Senator Omogeni did. So when she gets there, she thinks she has a right to transgress and do whatever she wants to do, just to probably make a name, or probably it's good politics for her. And some of the things that she has done, I do not think the party condones. This party almost punished Senator Nyamu. Actually, we punished Senator Nyamu for what she did. Now, these young senators that we put there, I want to tell them on national TV, they need to respect the party and put their house together and behave very well. The allegations that have been made against Clerk are grave allegations that can destroy a person's career. And if you're making such kind of allegations, grave allegations like that, on the character of a person who has risen to the position of the Clerk of the Senate, you need to be truthful, because in lieu of that, you actually destroy what Orwoba says could destroy Nyegenye's family, could destroy his career, and could destroy his standing in the society. And especially when you know you're actually saying this and you have no facts, you cannot prove it. So what is the punishment that should be meted to a person who deliberately wants to damage a person? I think Senate was right. I think Senate was right to do that, because the gravity of Orwoba's allegations against the Speaker should have a higher threshold for you to prove. And she's not been able to prove that. But what goes on record about this Clerk is unfortunate. That's why, as a party, we will stand very firm against anybody who is in the party and does things that brings down the integrity of the party or the integrity of other people. And therefore, I want to support the leader of the majority, Aaron Cheruriot, when he was really, really harsh and said, no, we will not accept this kind of behavior from our member. And therefore, I think while people think 6 months is harsh on Gloria Orwoba, what he said is even harsher to the Senate Speaker. And then there's something else that we need to do, and this is something that I have always said in the National Assembly, and for which actually my brother has also supported me on it. The integrity of the House is the integrity of Kenya. if you bring down the integrity of the houses of parliament, you have actually brought down Kenya. And sometimes I speak very, with a lot of passion in the house when I see young MPs misbehave. And they do things. I think we have, you know, the women who sit in the members of parliament, the ladies who sit in the front page, National Assembly, and they keep on shouting. And sometimes they say unprintable words in the National Assembly. You saw the case of the member of parliament from Embakasi East the other day when he told some very unprintable words to the lady speaker, the deputy speaker. You know, that kind of things should not happen in the House. And that person actually had made a motion to name him, to shame him, to name him in Parliament. But Speaker Wetangula told me, oh, just leave it. But we should not allow any member of the National Assembly or the Senate to bring down, either by deeds or by words, the integrity of the House. Because if the House of Parliament is brought down, Kenyans will not even respect the laws that we make. If they know this is the kind of senator that we have, and then you pass a law that compels Kenyans to do certain things, Kenyans will not respect those laws. So what I want to say is that senators, members of parliament, need to hold themselves with absolute integrity at a certain level where you do not bring down. Because if you bring down one, if one member misbehaves in National Assembly, it is the whole National Assembly. We will pass a law that Kenyans will say, this law was passed by which people? Sometimes the character of the person determines what happens to what he says. You know, and therefore, I want to say that while Senator Mogeni spoke there, he tells us that he will not condone any kind of injustice and therefore would stand to defend any person. I felt in his speech in Parliament, in the Senate, that probably he was protecting his votes in Kisii by trying to defend Senator Orwoba, who comes from his backyard.
I'll defend him on this.
Just for the Just for the council here wants to defend.
She's from my neighboring county of Kisii. So actually, in terms of votes, there is no trickle-down effect. I'm from the neighboring county of Nyamira.
Kisii are Kisii. They are not Nyamiras and Kisii.
I've known Senator Gloria for long, even before he came to Parliament, when he was in the Law Society of Kenya. And I think he couldn't have been moved by that. I think he has a sense of justice. We were with him in the assembly. And again, as he said, when Honorable Pio and I was punished, he also expressed the same view that it was too severe. But to me, what comes out, transgression must be punished.
Yes.
And Senator Orwoba, this is the second time. The first time she went with clothes that was stained.
Yeah.
Whatever stained them, she's the one who knows up to today.
Yes.
But what it depicted was also not very acceptable. Then this came, it was grave. And she deserves some punishment. What I think we'll have to go and do is look at our standing orders and probably go into details and actually met out and said, if this happens, up to this can be done, because you know what to do with the laws. For this offense, maximum is this. So that if we leave it to the feeling, the discretion of the chair of the House Powers and Privileges Committee, then we have this argument. But if they were clearly stated that for this is the punishment, maximum of this, then we wouldn't have an argument. Because what we all agree, she transgressed, she needed to be punished. What we are now discussing is how much punishment this deserves. I think I've seen it because even in the Honorable Pio and I's case, it was taken, if it goes to the extent that the matter goes to court, then you know it has brought the processes of parliament into question. Yeah, and then court goes on to indicate that it was too severe. And courts respect processes that institutions put in place legally. So that if we had said for this transgression, this is the punishment, even if you go to court, they'll say, okay, the institution was working within the limits of its processes. You are a member of that institution. You know that if you do that, that will happen to you. You can now not come back to us. Similarly, even in the public opinion, they know If they do that, they'll be punished to that level. So you then leave judgment to the House, to the institution, to maintain the integrity of the members and of the institution as a whole. But some acts need severe punishment.
Yes.
We should put a line on what is it.
Well, questions of indecorous nature, like what we've seen in the Senate as well, has not also, National Assembly is not really exempted.
Yes.
And while there are lessons that you've learned that you need maybe to address that with the standing orders, because I remember when we had the security bill being discussed, very contentious. There were fights on the floor of the House. Even under things of women were held at some of the legislators, if I'm right, if I may remember, right? So when it comes to that extent, what does it really tell you also on the decorum and the integrity of how some matters might be handled, especially when it comes to female parliamentarians?
That is exactly what I'm saying. That
but does it have to take like a case of now what is happening with Senator Orwoba for you to make those amendments? You've had learning points from experiences.
All laws actually arise from experiences of society. Something happens, it happens again, then the society says, no, we have to do this. There are very few laws that come de novo out of somebody's own thinking. Most of them, people are experiencing things, there are no clear guidelines, the law comes in. I'm sure, following this debate, even a member of Senate, a member of the National Assembly, somebody will come up and actually say, even if you look at the Speaker's panel, I think they look at it. There's a committee that looks at standing orders. And
I'm a member of the House Procedure.
The House Procedures Committee. Yes. In fact, that is what should be recommended. And this year, they then go and look at the details of the sanctions we give for the transgressions that take place. That is the experience. But all the things that you see, we make laws against, the society is always ahead of the law. And the law is always, particularly, there is a lawyer, particularly criminals or people who tend to feel a sense of entitlement. They are always ahead until you now cap them with laws that are put in place. I think that is where we are going with this.
But when you come to amendments of the law, or even the standing orders, yes, we have a recent amendment that now the CSs need to appear before the plenary, yes, right? Be on the floor of the House. How is that in the violation of the Constitution? Senior Counsel.
Yes,
because that has been amended. But how does it also augur well with the Constitution? Can you amend?
There has been a huge debate. But I wanted to remind my colleagues, if you follow what happens in other parliaments, I think I saw about 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, a member of House of Commons, I mean, the allegations were not as severe as the ones that were facing Gloria. But he was also accused of intimidating the staff to allow him be in the front when we had the funeral of the Queen. And all he was asked is to come to the floor of the House, walk to the aisle, and apologize to the House. And that was it. So I think we need to balance, how do we react to
but also you've seen a resignation also from the House of Commons of a legislator because of issues of sexual innuendos that were alleged against him.
In fact, even if you follow in the Senate of US, the chair of Foreign Relations Committee is facing allegations of bribery. As we speak today, is being asked to resign because he has just been indicted. He's a Democrat. So these things happen. In some parliaments, debates can be so emotive. In some parliaments, there are fights. People fight physically on the floor. That's how emotive these things can be at times. So as a speaker, I agree what you have said about Wetangula. I also saw Lusaka being extremely restrained. Because, you know, that's the only, we speak, when I speak, I'm speaking for the entire of Nyamira. So at times I can be very emotional, and the presiding chair must be able to understand that some of these things come with a lot of emotions. Yeah. So in terms of the amendments to standing orders, I would not say much on the one touching on cabinet secretaries, because there has been a huge debate. Our position has been that that is unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional.
And we have actually gone to the extent of filing a case which is currently pending before the High Court, because we want the court to make a declaration. So I don't want to influence the judges who are hearing that matter. Safe to say that we have taken the position that the amendment to the outstanding order to allow CS to appear was unconstitutional. The matter is pending before court, and we shall abide by the decision of the High Court on that matter. Yeah.
All right, and National Assembly, how, okay, since the matter is actually in court, but it brings question also, when you come with the pieces of legislations like this or amendment, yes, do you take cognizance also of the Constitution being your plumb line, that you're not in violation, then you need now the courts now to interpret for you some of these legislations that you yourself you make, or these amendments?
There are several issues. Of course, they've gone to court, but there are several issues which we considered at the level of the House Procedure and Rules Committee. One of them being that when the House is sitting to listen to the CS, is it sitting as House in plenary, or is it sitting as House in committee? Okay. Is the CS, when he comes to the House, a member of the National Assembly? Does he come in to address the National Assembly from the floor of the National Assembly?
But you have limitations with the committee.
Or from
within? The committee cannot be the entire House, so you can't say a whole blockade is a committee. If you're appearing, yeah.
The House can sit, the whole House can sit in committee. It can do that. We have the Committee of the Whole.
Yeah,
yes, we have the Committee of the Whole. And the Committee of the Whole is in such a way that the whole House can sit in committee. And again, where does the Cabinet Secretary address members of Parliament from? You see, that Parliament is if you have been there, it is in such a way that where after the Speaker there's a bar. And after the bar there is some space. That space is not the House, you know. And where the Cabinet Secretaries actually address the members of the Assembly, they don't address from the floor of the House. And then that makes their case to say that that is unconstitutional. I don't want to influence what is done there. But we have considered, and we have consulted lawyers, and we have consulted very much on this matter for us to be able to say, yes, I think it is possible to do that. It went through fire refinement until we came to the conclusion that it is possible. And I think there's no contention. But I would be happy to hear the ruling of the High Court on this matter, because we would also, as a House, would want to be constitutional in whatever we want to do. And I think if they have gone to court, we'll be happy to hear what the court says. But we considered the Constitution, and we looked at it, and we have very good lawyers with actually the House privileges, not the House privilege, the House Rules and Procedures Committee has very, very good lawyers in it, and we considered a lot of things, and we came to that conclusion that it is possible to do that without infringing on the Constitution.
All right.
But this is another example
of
that laws are progressive as the society develops. What brought about the issue we are discussing, the merits of it aside, that the court will decide, is that before, when ministers then, now cabinet secretaries, were in the House as members of Parliament, then they could be put to task, and the questions were raised, and they responded. And then with the Constitution, we changed the Constitution, and the cabinet secretaries are out of the House. Then they were now answering through chair committees and coming to the committees. If you seek a statement, or they go to the committees. So members felt they want a face-to-face interaction with them. So that is what was missed. And so people are now looking, what can we do? And this is how this was reached, actually. I think in the 2015, there was even an attempt, and it nearly went, and then the issue came, is it right or not constitutional? But that's what I was saying. Now the court will decide. And as to whether the House itself can make laws that then the courts interpret. Law, I'm not a lawyer, but the process is actually very intense and very, very delicate, and a lot of issues are considered. Even the best lawyers will still miss an issue. So as much as the parliament makes laws, I think constitutionally the lawyers will say the court still has a right to interpret the laws. And there are cases when the courts have interpreted and said, this is not right, this is not right, and this come back. I think it's a checks and balances that we have in the society. Generally, if people behaved conscientiously, many things will be agreed on. But when interest, party interest, personal interest come in, then people now just defy facts on the floor. Then you get into this kind of thing. But I don't think it is terrible that a law is made, then the court finds a different interpretation. It's just that the courts had a better time and more consideration to look at and said, okay, fine, let's change it. And well, you move on.
All right. So let's put in the discussion, because I think one of the issues as well that is before the NDC is the issue of gender. And we've seen an attempt also from or a suggestion that affirmative action, especially in realizing the gender equality or the gender quota in the National Assembly is actually met. It's a pity that this is so clearly stipulated in the Constitution, but it has to take a committee to broach this matter that is well stipulated here in the Constitution. So the question becomes again, there are indications that we need more seats on the floor of the House that is dedicated to women. We're talking about 94 seats. The capacity of the House, of course, has been taken cognizant of. There are emoluments that will come with this 94 more affirmative action given seats. We have the issues of the CSs that we're battling with. Why do we need 94 women? On the gender question, why do we need that? Why do we? It's a suggestion that has been put forward, but I think it's a bigger question that we need to ask on the affirmative action. It's not the first time we're talking about affirmative action. Has it failed in this country? Oh, it is always a sunset clause that is being put there, but this sun is never sinking when it comes to the affirmative action.
Let me start with our lawyer friend here, my colleagues here. Yes. It's a desire of the country and international, and I accept it, that actually there should be affirmative action for more women to participate in all activities, parliament and legislation included. And that is what the desire in the Constitution. Now it came to the constitutional process. It's the process of bringing that desire into the Constitution that I myself have a problem with. To me,
but it's already in the Constitution.
No, I'll tell you, that is where I'm coming. To me, I think it's a very simple mistake that was made at the time of making the Constitution. We prescribed a number to be achieved through an electoral process. That's something you can never predict. You can never predict that I want this number to be brought in through an election. You see, we can deal with whether it is an appointed, the law says whether it's appointed or elected positions. The appointed ones are easy. You can actually get the numbers, but elective ones is not. So when we say 2/3 of either gender, there's only one way you can do that, and we don't seem to accept that. Get the elections done, see which gender is not getting 1/3, nominate to fill that. And that's what we did with the county assemblies. And it has worked, because a mathematical thing, an arithmetic thing, cannot be done administratively, not through an election. Now, when we came to the National Assembly, the constitutional process, now, when we now looked at it, and we see the number of women that are likely to come, and you assume maybe one time it will be men, depending on how things are changing. Then we said, assume that none is elected at all. Then how many will you have to nominate? I think that is where that large number is coming from. And if you do that, again, this is arithmetic. It's not even math. If you do that, what is the size of the assembly or of parliament you get into? And it's huge. And as a nation, I think as a country, we have not accepted that we are going to spend money to that level to do it. To me, that is one thing we should say. If we are willing that we will spend money to enlarge the numbers in the National Assembly and the Senate to reach that level, we will have no problems. We'll just go through nominations, and the nomination process will do it. But we are trying to find many ways of getting this done through an elective process, and nature is just telling us numbers cannot be gotten easily through an election. You must manipulate something administratively fast that will give you the number. And that's where we are stuck. I don't think we are stuck in the principle of it. The principle that there's need for affirmative action, we have no problem. But there's even a bigger picture. Really, Dibal, if you were to ask, why are we not in Kenya now having many women in the assembly or in many positions? It's actually the gender role. This is something that people have never looked at. The gender role of women we have in the society, childbearing and child rearing. Many women will say, no, at this point, I'm not going in with this stiff competition, with these family things. Women will sacrifice their jobs for their family and their children. Men, much less. So we then need to support them. That is what brings affirmative action. To me, it is not been affirmative action. It is recognizing the other role that they are actually playing for the society.
Thank you. Let's hear from Owen Bai.
No, but I think we have the issue that we have about affirmative action is actually probably in the National Assembly, because I think the Senate is sorted. The county assemblies are sorted, but the National Assembly, one is the numbers, the National Assembly. And two, if you are to get 2/3 or a third or whatever it is that to ensure that we have more women in parliament.
It's 2/3. Mm-hmm.
2/3. Definitely the numbers will skyrocket. I remember the formula that was being used in the BBI. I think it was raising a parliament to almost 800 members. We might have to build another chamber. But it is an important principle in the Constitution. But like Dr. Nyikal said, I think we made a mistake. I think we made a mistake, and the people who participated in the framing of the Constitution are required to come back and say, well, there's a problem here. I remember the former CJ, Maraga, speaking his mind about it, and even issuing an advisory to the president to dissolve parliament. Yes, when I read that, I said, okay, fine. He has said we dissolve parliament, but he has not given us a formula on how to reconstitute it in such a way that we meet the threshold. I think that is something that we're stuck on. Okay, let's dissolve parliament, as Maraga had advised. But then, okay, where is the formula? Because even the Supreme Court, the ruling that was made, was it the Supreme Court or the court of one of the apex courts? Yes, said that this is a progressive thing. Now, progressive is at what point, both in the lives of parliament and time, can we really achieve it? Is it achievable in terms of actually getting, and you know, this will bring a lot of interesting politics. When I started this, I said, to bring interesting politics. Why? Because if I'm a woman and I want to be nominated and to ensure that I get nominated, I make sure that no woman is elected. So if no woman is elected, I get an opportunity to be nominated. so that there are more women who will come in through nomination. So you will actually go into the constituencies and ensure that all people that are elected into Parliament, National Assembly, are men, so that those women that believe in nomination, all of them get nominated. And you know, parties and other people can play around with that kind of thinking, because it will come back again to which party nominates how many people, you know. So we can decide as a party, we will only field the male candidates, so that we get our share of the of the gender, two-thirds nominated. And therefore we become somehow, we bring in people into the house. So there are a lot of politics in this thing that needs to be considered before we actually say,
exactly,
this is what we settle on.
Exactly.
There is the politics and there is the law. But I think this president has also expressed himself to the memorandum to Parliament and has given his thoughts on how we can actually achieve it. And I think CS Juma is also
But it is all about style and on substance, also from the party and the president himself. That you have the women charter,
yes,
and even women themselves, they decry how that has not been realized.
Yes,
Yet you had a charter and you promised that, of course, it will be given, or much premium will be given to women.
But
government has failed
you see,
to
the president,
realize
apart from just sending the memorandum to Parliament, I think the CS for Gender has a working party which was gazetted to work on this and bring an act to Parliament. So there's something that is actively being done at the gender level. I actually we attended a meeting at Kempisk, I think, on this matter, and there is an active committee that is very women activists and women lawyers are actually part of it to actually craft a formula to achieve the two-thirds gender. So the president and this government is actually very alive to ensuring that the principle in the constitution.
But we need to bring to question, even as we come to that, on the issue of, because it appears, our submission will be, this is not a constitutional problem.
Yes.
This is a party problem.
Yes.
And it has to be addressed from the party roots, not through the National Dialogue Committee. So we are wasting our time when they come, and even working with the working party that the CS is really coming up with.
Yes.
For what? And we have it already in the Constitution. What we should be asking is the question of the Implementation Committee in the National Assembly.
Yes.
What does it do?
Now, this matter may not fall in the ambit of the Implementation Committee of the National Assembly. It will not.
Why not?
Because the work of the Implementation Committee, it's actually Committee on Implementation, not an Implementation Committee.
I'm just saying, okay,
Committee on Implementation in the National Assembly is looking at what has been passed in Parliament but has not been implemented. This matter has not been passed in Parliament. Therefore, it will be not their job to do. Probably if the Committee on Implementation of the Constitution, CIC, which is led by this lady.
That's what I'm asking, the Committee of Implementation. Is it defunct? Is it functional?
It is functional. And I think the other day, the lady, what is Gadoni or Mushoba? I think is the chair of that committee. She actually stood at the floor of the House.
That's the committee I'm asking. I mean, what is the sole function?
Several questions, and I think they have they have a job to do. I think they need to work together. The Committee on the Implementation of the Constitution, the Gender Ministry, and probably the Executive Office of the President to midwife this thing, because this will be stuck with us for many, many years.
Okay.
Unless they go to court to expunge that article in the Constitution, so that we can.
So there's a committee which is not really working, and then we're taking matters from the purview of Parliament to the National Dialogue Committee.
This is the National Dialogue Committee.
Yeah, yes.
My personal view is that.
Okay, let's say from Senator Okongo Mogeni.
Far. Sorry? With a lot of these issues.
So we're failing from the party.
That's Uda speaking. They say, that's the whip.
The deputy majority leader. This National Dialogue Committee.
Dibal, as Mheshimiwa says, at times gender issues are progressive. Yes. At times,
yes.
Like the House of Representatives has now hit 100 women. Mm-hmm. It's been a long struggle.
Okay.
Now they have 100 elected women in the House of Representatives of Congress.
Okay.
And even in Kenya, we have also done very well. You you don't notice the Chief Justice of this country is a lady.
The deputy.
The deputy is a lady.
The registrar.
Out of the Chief Registrar is a lady. Out of 7-member bench of the Supreme Court, 3 are women.
Yes.
Our controller of budget is a woman.
Yes.
Our Auditor General is a woman. The chair of Revenue Commission is a woman.
Yeah.
Salary Remuneration Commission is chaired by a woman.
Yes.
Gender is chaired by a woman. The Ombudsman chair
Yes.
is a lady. So we have also made some good progress. In governors, you know, we now have 4 elected women governors who have competed against men and won. People like Susan Kiika in Nakuru, Cecily Mbarire in Ebu, Wavinya Ndeti in Machakos, and
Wanga.
And Gladys Wanga in Homa Bay. Yes. So it's a very good stride, but I don't have a solution as to how we are going to handle this matter, but I listened to presentation. And since I'm a member, I cannot give a way forward, but since it was public, maybe just a highlight. The women have a lot of options on the table on this gender issue. One of the arguments they made is that if parties affirmatively gave tickets to women candidates in areas where the party is popular, they say that will really push up the number. And they gave cases of, I think, Homa Bay constituency, where there are about 3 ODM elected members of parliament who are women. And they gave the case of, you know, by UDA just giving tickets to Cecily Mbarire, Susan Kiika, Gladys Wanga on ODM, that automatically gives the party women elected to those positions. So that's one of the options they put on the table. They also argue that the issue of top-up, what Mheshimiwa said, could be used where you look for enough money as a country and say we are ready to spend to attain the gender top-up, and that will, of course, sew up the numbers of elected members in parliament. So if the government is committed and it's willing to set aside money, you know, offices for the nominated women, budget for their salaries and everything that goes with a member of parliament, they said that can also be done so that there's that top-up. Once you do elections, you don't attain the numbers, you do a top-up. They also gave an option and said they don't want this to be reduced to an issue of a party picking maybe their girlfriends or and, slave queens. They have very nice ideas, listening to them. Because I saw there was Kewopa, there was the Gender Commission, there is a task force appointed by Juma. They were all sitting together and they have very wonderful ideas. They actually said the best way is to pick those who vie, you know, those who come out and contest. If you contest and you're number 2, then for that particular county, they say the party will give nomination slots to those who contest and get number 2 or 3. Very wonderful ideas, because they said this process needs to be fair. They don't want it to be opened up and then it's left at the mercy of party leaders, because they say there can be gerrymandering, people pick those who are close to them. So I think all these options, even though Mheshimiwa says that the National Dialogue Committee will go nowhere, I hope when they sit, if there is goodwill, that is, I hope when they sit, they will look at the totality of all the proposals that have been put on the table. And then they make a proposal going forward on how this can be achieved. I mean, I also have daughters. I have daughters, my sisters. You know, I have sisters. Every time you wake up in the morning, there is a lady behind you every day. So let's look at this matter, debate it, and see if we can get a lasting solution to it. But we have, as a country, we have really made some very good strides in ensuring that women get a space on the table in terms of participating in decision making.
But do we there's one principle again, which we seem to ignore in life generally, that the realities of life, how the world was made, that's physical. Politics cannot change those laws. And this is where we make a mistake. Even in governance, sometimes we ignore professionals who are talking on the basis of the physical laws of the world. When you bring maths, it is absolute, it is physical. So what the issue we had was the number. We have only two things: change the constitution or go and pick women through another process. All manipulations through an electoral process cannot guarantee, even if you go and nominated all of them,
thank you,
they can still lose. But that principle, we ignore it in very many other areas. Right. Even in the number of counties. We actually, it's the same thing that is bringing us problems.
Right, talking of counties, we'll circle back with counties, but I wanted just to wind up as we're taking a short break. Right now, I can see it is ticked up to 8 o'clock. There's a question of efficacy of the National Gender and Equality Commission, and also the Office of the Gender that is being led by Aisha Juma. Why do we need another presidential working party while we have a commission? Is it dysfunctional? Right? Let's answer that on the other side of the break. Don't go away. You're watching Siasa Fiesta.